Hello and welcome to my channel. Thank you very much for clicking. For all those South Sudanese who are watching this video, I say to all of you, Happy Independence Day. 9 July today is an independent day. It's a national day for us in South Sudan. This video is a continuation of our last video, which was about the government of South Sudan. I put it in form of a question. So the question was, is Juba government a Dinka government? So I'm still here providing the answer to these questions. Many South Sudanese do consider the government that we have in Juba as a Dinka government for many reasons. First of all, the Dinkas who are in the government assume that the government is their own government. They think that they are the liberators of the Republic of South Sudan. And they think that it is their right to dominate the government. This is completely wrong, and I condemn it, and I don't agree with whoever who is from the Dinka community that claim to say that the government is a Dinka government. Now, there are reasons why many South Sudanese believe that the government we have in Juba is a Dinka government. For example, let's look at the organized forces. Organized forces is one of the reasons many South Sudanese believe that the government we have in Juba is a Dinka government. If you look at the National Army, you will find that 80%, if it is not 90%, 80% of the national of the members of the National Army are Dinkas. Not only in the National Army, if you go to the National Police, you will also find that more than 80% of the members of National Police are Dinkas. If you go to the wildlife forces, you will also find that more than 80% of its members are from Dinka community. If you go to other organized forces like customs, passports and immigrations, and other institutions that we have in the country, you will find that they are dominated by the Dinka tribe, whether intentionally or unintentionally. So I agree with all South Sudanese who say that the army, the security organs, the police, the wildlife forces, the customs, the fire brigades, all these organized national forces are dominated by the Dinka tribe. Yes, I say this is true, and because it is true, we need to make reform, whether in the National Army or in the police or in the national security and the other organized forces. How do we make reforms? We have to include members of other South Sudanese communities, so that we have what? We have a national police in the actual meaning of the word, so that we have the National Army in the actual meaning of the word, so that we have national security in the real sense of the word, so that we have national secretariat for passports and migration in the real sense of the words. So whoever says that these institutions are dominated by the Dinka, I agree with that person. And if he calls for the reform of these institutions, I actually agree with him, because this is wrong. South Sudan is a country for all South Sudanese. So no South Sudanese should be allowed to dominate the institutions of the state by high percentage, more than the rest of South Sudanese. So the government that was formed in South Sudan before the independence in 2005 made a very big mistake by not including members, or by not including all South Sudanese into the organized forces, because these are national institutions, and therefore we must be all there in those institutions. And because the army is dominated by the Dinka, or most of the Dinkas are in the army, the national security is predominantly Dinka, the national police is predominantly Dinka, and other organized forces. That's why some South Sudanese say that the government we have in Juba is a Dinka government. This is one reason. Reason number two why other South Sudanese believe that the government we have in Juba is a Dinka government is this. They believe that it is a Dinka government because if you look, there's a body formed by the Dinka elders, all right? The JCE, that is called Jeng Council of Elders. This council was formed after the war. After the war, I think it was formed between the 2014, the end of 2014, and the beginning of in 2014 and then 2015. So this body is a body mainly. It's a body that brings together the Dinka elders from their different areas within South Sudan. And so this body behaves like a shadow government, or the de facto government, you may call it. And therefore, many South Sudanese says that the government we have in Juba is a Dinka government, because this body that is called Jeng Council of Elders, or the Dinka Council of Elders, is trying to be like a parallel government, or to be the de facto government that come up with the decisions and then give them to the national government under President Salva Kiir, and then those decisions are taken and implemented. And this way, the Dinka looks like Dinka government. So I would insist on the same point that the government we have in Juba is not a Dinka government, and it will never be a Dinka government. Why do I say this? Because all members of the Dinka government who are ministers or advisors or under secretaries or director generals of the ministries or any other government institution in South Sudan, those ones are not representing the Dinka community. They are representing themselves. They are not represented by Dinka community because they were not sent to be members of the national government by their Dinka communities or their respective Dinka communities. It was the government that we have in Juba that elected them or appointed them into those positions. And this government has made a very big mistake, appointing more than 80% of its members from the Dinka community. Because this government does not belong to the Dinka. It's a government for South Sudanese, or it is a South Sudanese government. So based on these things, that's why other South Sudanese who are not from the Dinka community says that the Dinka is controlling the government, and therefore they call it a Dinka government. So I say it is not a Dinka government for these reasons. Okay, if it is not a Dinka government, whose government is it? I think it is clear. It is a government of allies. Those who are in the government in Juba are not representing their Dinka communities, and therefore it is a government of allies. They are allies. It is a club of interests, and so they become members in that club representing their own interests, not even the interests of their own communities. It is a government of opportunists. Those who are in the government are opportunists. It is a government of bourgeoisie. Those who are in the government are bourgeoisie. It is a government of kleptocrats. The word kleptocrats means thieves. It's a government of thieves, because they are there embezzling what? Embezzling public money, wasting our resources. It is a government of tribalists because they are the one championing tribalism in South Sudan. It is a government of corrupt officials because they are engaged in corruptions since 2005 until now. What they are doing is only corruptions. They are supposed to use the money that they are using for their own benefit in the service of the people of South Sudan. But because they are misusing that money and there is no accountability by the head of the state, that's why we say this is a government of corrupt officials. It is oligarchy. It is also called oligarchy. So this is the government that we have in Juba. So members of the Dinkas community are in a dilemma. And let me clarify this dilemma. Anybody who is a Dinka in South Sudan finds himself or herself in a dilemma of being a Dinka. It is a two-dimension dilemma. Those who are those other South Sudanese who are non-Dinka look at the members of the Dinka community as the beneficiaries of this government, when they are not. And so they feel that, oh, it is a Dinka government, and they look at anyone who is a Dinka and they have feeling of envy or hatred or something like that. And the evidence is already there. On social media, I have seen so many videos, people insulting the Dinkas and so on. So they became a hatred. They became a target of hatred by other South Sudanese who are not Dinkas, because they assume that these Dinkas are the one benefiting from the government and they are the one dominating the government and the government is their government, when they are not actually beneficiaries. Because if you go to the Dinka areas, you will find that there are no services delivered to them. Go to the hometown of Salva Kiir, go to Warab State. If you go to Gogrial, from where President Salva Kiir comes, and it is also where I come, you will find no services. Leave alone going to Gogrial. If you go to Akon, because Akon is the area where President Kiir comes from, Akon is just away from Gogrial town by something like 3 or 4 miles. It's not far away from Gogrial town, because Gogrial is in the center and Akon is at the outskirts of Gogrial. So if you go there, you will find no hospitals, you will find no schools, you will find no good roads, you will not find even an airport. If President Kiir traveled from Juba, he goes to Wau, and from Wau, he traveled from Juba by air to go to Wau. And then from Wau, he traveled by land from Wau to Kwajok. And then from Kwajok again to Gogrial, Akon. Because there is no airport in Gogrial, a standard airport is not there, and there is no airport even in Akon. So there is lack of services in the Dinka areas. If you go to Tony, there are no services. If you go to Twij Mayardit, no services. You go to Abyei, no services. If you go to Lake State, the same thing. If you go to Urul, the same thing. If you go to Bor, the same thing. If you go to Khorfalus, if you go to Bailiet, if you go to Akoka, all these Dinka areas, there are no services delivered to them. So what do I want to say here? What I want to say is that Dinkas are also victims of this government, because this government is not serving them. The government just tells them that this government is your government, but it is not serving them. How does the government become my government when it is not serving me? I assume a government to be my government if this government cares about me by providing basic services to me as a citizen, then I will assume that this government, or I will consider this government as my own government. So the services are not delivered to the Dinka areas, as well as the other areas. If you go to the entire Upper Nile, there are no services. The entire Bahr Ghazal, the entire Equatoria, there are no services delivered to the people. So the government we have in Juba is not a Dinka government, and I don't believe it would be a Dinka government. And so my fellow brothers who are South Sudanese and they are not from the Dinka community, I would like you to change your mind. The government we have in Juba is not a Dinka government, because it is not even serving the Dinkas. The Dinkas are victims of this government, just as you are also victims. This government is a government that is using, or that is exercising, what I may call systematic policy of killing. All the activists are killed. Whether you are a Dinka, they kill you. Whether you are from Equatoria, or you are from Fujulu, or from Anuak, or from Bari, or from any tribe in South Sudan, they kill you. Even if you are a Dinka, they kill you. You know that Isaiah Abraham was killed. He was a writer and he was criticizing the government. He was killed. Recently, Karbino Wolagok, who rebelled against the government, was killed. Georgia Thor was killed earlier. So these are just few examples to give you. So they kill all of us. So this government is not a government of Dinka, because Dinkas are also victims of this government. And the Dinkas have found themselves in the dilemma of becoming a target of hatred by other South Sudanese who are not Dinkas, because they assume that their relatives are the one dominating the government, and therefore they have developed sentiments or feelings of hatred against the Dinka community. So Dinkas are poor, and they are just suffering like you, my dear brothers, from our other communities within South Sudan. So the dilemma is a two-dimension dilemma, as I said earlier. They are a target of other South Sudanese for assuming that this government is their government. This is dimension one. Dimension two, they are also a target of this government, because when they speak up, they are killed like the rest of South Sudanese. And I have just given you the example. So to be a Dinka in South Sudan nowadays is one of the most difficult things. And you have to agree with me in this point. Anyway, you are free to agree with me or to disagree, because the choice is yours in the end. But I'm here to tell you the fact. Okay, now I have told you that the organized forces are dominated by the Dinka more than 80%. And I have presented you the solutions. The solution is that these institutions should be made national institution in the real sense of the word. This is what I said. We have to make reforms. We have to include all South Sudanese, because this one creates problems. Other South Sudanese who are not included will feel that they are excluded. And if they feel that they are excluded, this can generate hatred, and then hatred can develop into conflict and bloodshed. So we are a people that fought to bring justice. So what Juba is doing is not justice to all South Sudanese. It is injustice. And as you see now, people are fighting. We have more than rebel group who are fighting. It is because of this injustice. So we have to make reform. That is the solution to this problem. And this Jiang Council of Elders has to be what? Has to be nullified. Because those who form this council do not represent the Dinka. They form it on their own. And so my personal opinion regarding this Jiang Council of Elders is that it has to be nullified, or it has to be abolished. I know this government will not do it, because Jiang Council of Elders is an ally to the government that we have already in Juba. So the government will not abolish it. But we, the activists, we have to air out our opinions. We have to speak out, because it is dividing the nations. It is tribalizing the nation. It is generating hatred and hate speech, as we see now. All right. Okay, now it is clear that the government we have in Juba is not the Dinka government. What should be done? What should be done is this. We, as the people of South Sudan, should unite. We have to unite, and if we become perfectly united, what will we do? We will use that unity to topple this government that we have in Juba. And the government can be toppled through popular uprisings. This is one of the political ways this government can be toppled, because this government is there for nothing. They are in the position of delivering services to us, and they are not doing this. So why should we keep them in power? So therefore, I call on all South Sudanese, we come together and unite ourselves, and we become a robust force or power that will stand in the face of this government and say enough is enough. So this is what we can do. So thank you for clicking. Thank you for taking time to watch this video. Please subscribe to my channel. Make some comment below, and also share the message. Thank you for taking time to listen to me. Bye, until next time.